Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Welcome back to the Market Musings podcast, where today we're talking to Malcolm Palle, who was a fairly regular guest on our podcast when we first started over a year ago, Kenny, now, a long time ago, time flies. And Malcolm, of course, is our sort of resident crypto expert who we like to talk to about all things crypto and crypto space and what's going on and NFTs and all that lovely stuff. So Malcolm, you're very welcome back on the podcast. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mark. How are you doing, Kenny?
Yeah, all good, Malcolm. It's a bit dreich in Scotland today, as they say up here. But go on, tell us what the weather's like in Gibraltar. Make me jealous.
It's glorious. It's really nicely sunny, but unfortunately, I haven't been out much today. I've been stuck by my computer and indoors, so I'm not experiencing I'm not getting the full Gibraltar experience at the moment.
At least you can look out the window at it. That's a bonus.
Yeah, it's nice and a lovely view and all that. And it's only going to get better. Of course, we're in the green corridor now, so there's going to be a lot of Brits coming over. Flights are going up in price, so if I want to come back to the UK at some point, I'm going to have to pick my moment because they tend to get pretty high when the volumes are high. So and it just gets to that stupid level where you don't really want to spend hundreds of pounds on a flight that would cost you about 80 or 90 any other time. So anyway, that's by the by. All good here, thanks. And I hope you're looking forward to Bitcoin Pizza Day on the 22nd of May.
Yeah, I'm actually having pizza tonight, Malcolm. So
too soon. I mean, do you know the story? You know what it's about, don't you? Do you know?
Yeah, go on. For the benefit of our listeners, let us
sure
tell us all about it.
Well, it's actually something in our crypto stamp that we actually have got. One of the mythic rare NFTs is of Bitcoin Pizza Day, and it's got a picture of pizza and a Bitcoin elaborately put together. And there's only 10 of them in that sort of mythic rare status of those Bitcoin pizzas, and the whole story is centered around the first ever transaction in Bitcoin, which happened on the 22nd of May, I think 2010, when a Bitcoin miner, which at that time was anyone with a computer could be a Bitcoin miner, offered anyone 10,000 Bitcoin if they could get him 2 pizzas from his local Papa John's pizza place delivered. As I say, for 10,000 Bitcoin he offered them. Now at the time there was no set value, there was no exchange rate, there was no way of actually determining how much that would be worth or wouldn't be worth. But they were mining them and they were throwing them off, and there were loads of them about. And some kid a student in London took him up on it. The guy got the 10,000 Bitcoin, and he proceeded to go to the website and ordered 2 pizzas for the guy from his local pizza place and had them delivered to him. He got his pizzas. The first ever transaction in Bitcoin was registered. And today, if he would have kept the 10,000 Bitcoin, that'd be worth $560 to $570 million. So that's quite a expensive pizza, which hopefully was good. At that price, you'd hope it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bit of a funny story like that as well. Actually, in my previous life I've talked about it in podcasts. I was a professional gambler for several years, and some of the casinos started to offer to pay you in Bitcoin, and I'd never heard of it at this point. And there was one casino I cashed out. I want to say it was a couple of £100 or whatever, but they offered me, it was several hundred Bitcoin anyway, and I was like,
and you didn't take it?
I didn't take it. No, that's just nonsense. I've never heard this in my life. No, just give me the cash, and there you go, a couple of hundred Bitcoin.
If only you had a time machine.
I know. Listen, I've changed it. No, do you know what? I wouldn't change anything. Nah.
No regrets, Kenny?
No, there's no point.
No point.
tiptoeing into the grave. I'm just going to crash into it. Well, once my body's broken, that's the time to go to the grave. It's not going in one piece. It's going in bits. So
yeah. Well, that's what I was reading for someone else. I think it was Anthony Hopkins. This quite famous quote's going around. He says, "None of us are going to get out of this alive."
yeah. It's not a dress rehearsal. So just live
Absolutely.
life.
Yep. That's it.
And,
So,
I know we're digressing slightly, but I mean,
yeah.
you look at my mum and dad, and they saved all their life, and it was only my dad sort of last year that he went, "God, we've got all this money and we've never done nothing with it," and he didn't have his health at that point. It was a kind of frantic spending and stuff that you're like, "What are you doing this for?" And it's just like, because I've saved all my life and I'm not doing nothing with it. So I think he had a bit of regret that his health was failing. He had this money, and they couldn't really enjoy it. So
well, there's a balance, isn't there? You've got to find
definitely.
that balance between getting yourself some level of security and also enjoying your life at the same time.
Yeah, different generation though. So as that generation were taught to save. They were born before the Second World War, so they went through rationing.
That's right.
So
austerity.
So anyway, let's now that we've solved world problems, let's move on to crypto,
which is the other end of the spectrum, eh? So yes, it's interesting. So what have you guys been up to? Have you last time I think we spoke, you were sort of searching around for different tokens and different ideas, and I'm keen to know what you're looking at. And we've been quite sort of, I mean, from the company's point of view, my personal point of view, we're very focused on what we think is the right, what I think is the right things to be in at the moment.
Yeah, well, maybe just give us a quick update about what Coinsilium have done in the last couple of months, because there's been news aplenty, Malcolm, and then I can tell you all about me.
Sure. I mean, sort of generally, we've been releasing news quite a lot because it's just that's the stage we're at. We've announced Nifty Labs, our NFT development studio in Gibraltar, which is that's sort of moving faster than we can sort of control it, in the sense that we're still sort of working with quite an informal relationship, but it's still comfortable enough for Endorse and our partners and ourselves to know that we're on the same side and we're on the same page. But nonetheless, the inquiries we're getting, the level of work that we can look at is piling up, and we've also got our own projects that we've got to develop, which is one we announced yesterday, which been kind of lining up really from day one, which is to build an NFT marketplace, because that's something that I was going to say that the guys at Endorse can do in their sleep, but it's not as simple as that, but it is something they have got within their capability. So, that was sort of what engineered it. But of course, the angle that we're looking at is to build this using RSK and mint NFTs on RSK, which will effectively mean that we'll have NFTs on Bitcoin, which is, the I would say for us it's the holy grail, but it's also it's the compatibility of and the interconnectivity of both Ethereum and Bitcoin as blockchain. So it is a much wider market. It's an extremely ambitious project, and it's one that we sort of are speccing out as we go along. But nonetheless, we announced it yesterday, and we're very excited to be able to move that forward. It's a technical solution. I'm sort of reiterating that because although we do mention it in the RNS, we don't actually sort of expand on that. And I think as we go forward, we will expand on how that works, simply because there's a lot of layers to a marketplace, and at the front end you've got the user interface, and that is where the branding, the marketing, the profile goes. But behind that, there's the technology, and we think that our market research and analysis is showing that it's not a secret. The kind of people that are getting involved, the big names that are getting involved on various sides. An announcement yesterday that eBay is looking to offer NFTs, and not quite sure how they're going to do that in their current incarnation, simply because they don't accept crypto, and you can't really sell NFTs without a crypto capability. So that's what the marketplace needs to be. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to be doing about it. But likewise, you've got fashion brands, and you've got football clubs looking at them. And we believe that, if we build a technical solution that can be used by other parties, then effectively, it makes sense for them to have their own NFT shop, if you like, which will store and sell their goods. Because at the moment, the large brands are all very sort of peer-to-peer, open source, decentralized, and that's fine. But it's not, they're not easy to find what you want on a sort of like a bazaar, which is how most of the marketplaces are at the moment. But if unlike, say, NBA Top Shots, which is specifically for NBA, that's the kind of marketplace we think would be, or that's the kind of profile that would be suitable for brands. So we'd sort of be the technology behind that enables brands, and I'm using brands as very generic because I'm calling anything that has got a sort of, call it a football club, a record label, or a fashion house, or whatever it is, I'll call that a brand. So, we can then go to them with a sort of an oven-ready solution that they can use and then build the front end around. So, these are the kind of conversations we're having with people. It's interesting. The deals, depending on the complexity of them, are sort of I don't know. I can't say when they'll come off, but because they're ongoing conversations. And obviously we need the marketplace to be ready to actually sort of introduce those. But we've got a lot of things happening that is giving us more confidence to invest. And we've already committed $250,000 to the spec and the initial development of the platform. So we're very serious about it, and we're very convinced that that's the way it's going to go. So it's a very interesting space, and as I say, it's a little bit more than just art, which is what certainly Christie's. I think that was a great sale today. Apparently, that sort of reinforced the confidence in the space. So, lots going on, but our main focus is Nifty Labs, and that's hopefully where we'll be able to sort of give regular updates on progress. So that's pretty good. Have you got any questions on that?
Yeah, I think there'll probably be a lot of questions, as time goes on. But as you said, you're going to help us on the journey and understand it, because what I've learned with crypto and blockchain, every day's a school day. Every day I'm learning something new about crypto. So it's
completely.
Great.
And for us, it's kind of makes it easier when people have got it takes. I think it was Michael Saylor was saying, you can scratch the surface in about 10 hours of research. You can get a basic understanding of what it's all about with 100 hours of research. And that's really the reality, because I've had, 7 years of this, and I'm still not at the place where a lot of the, more proficient people are. And it is a whole new world. It's much more suited for younger people, because they kind of instinctively know what to sort of look for. And also, they haven't got all the bad habits that we've got of dealing with these sort of centralized, dumbed down applications that we're given by service providers, banks, and whatever. I mean, they're fine because they work and they're functional, but the level of complexity of some of the products and services and propositions that are being put forward do require much more sort of technical understanding, but sort of aptitude, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. But and of course, you've got your stamp. I think it's due to ship next week. And
the sales open next week on Monday, and there's a lot of work going on the back end for that, for the nifty.gi website to go live, so that's of wait to see. I'll want to talk more about that once the sales open, because we're going to be showing images of the NFT as well. So that will be something we'll talk about once they're out as well.
Yeah, well, on the day the pre-orders open, I sat and refreshed the screen and refreshed the screen and refreshed the screen, and eventually they came live. You know, in true Gibraltar style, it didn't go live at 12 o'clock midnight.
How dare you, Kenny?
Yeah, it was it was about half nine.
What are you
10
suggesting?
o'clock. Half nine, 10 o'clock.
Everyone in Gibraltar gets up at 11 o'clock in the morning. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, you better not take a trip out here.
But anyway, yeah, I'm hopefully I get within the first couple of orders. So I'm hoping for some nice low numbers. But I think I bought 125 to go along with my creation ones and my United Nation ones. So yeah, I'm looking forward to them. And hopefully, obviously, I was going to say hopefully by the time we get around to seeing the NFTs, that the gas fees will be cheaper. But of course, you guys are doing it on the wax platform.
Yeah, you've got to get wax as well. So that there's still going to be a kind of fee, if you like, for the exchanging into the wax. But those all then instructions will come out. So I don't want to preempt that. So I want everyone to know at the same time what's going on there. Yeah. So that's really us here. I think the important thing to sort of think about is how early we are in this cycle. It's quite extraordinary when we think about how long it's been since Bitcoin was a thing, and then other cryptos came about, and how fast everything's evolving, how many new propositions we're seeing all the time, and how large some very early stage startups are now or platforms have become in a really short space of time. So the space is evolving and morphing, and it's really exciting. But can't stress how early days it is. And I think that what you see in NFTs at the moment is kind of like the very early excitement that some people got around .com. That was very early. There were loads of ideas. There were loads of iterations of, use cases. I think, I started seeing people offering street names, domains for street names. I think that was a thing. It was a company. In fact, I think they even went public. They thought they'd be selling street names. And that would be, it made sense in some regard, because, if you think about it sort of very in a very logical way, your email address, if that's going to replace your physical address or your actual sort of house address, it would make sense to have your street name as your email address. But of course, it didn't take into consideration that that you don't need to be tied to a physical place to actually to have an email address. So that was kind of one of those early iterations that sort of missed the mark. But that's what we're seeing now. We'll see a lot of propositions coming out with ideas which look good. But that's and you'll find that there'll be a realization that maybe that wasn't the end goal. And it's one of the reasons why we're sticking very much on the technology side. We know what the marketplaces clearly are going to be something that is going to be required. They're going to evolve in the same way that browsers and search engines were the first iteration of ways of sort of aggregating information, and searches became a thing. So I think that's really where we're standing. We don't want to have any sort of wild ideas and then follow those for the purpose of exploration. So it's just sort of mapping out the space. But make no mistake, the sector, there's more to NFTs than art, music, whatever. There's legal applications. There's property, virtual metaverse assets, which is really nutty at the moment, but there'll be some serious use cases for those, even though it might seem strange that you'd buy a virtual property. But once you start seeing things in augmented reality come to life, that really is a way of seeing virtual assets in as if you enter the virtual world through augmented reality. Now, at the moment, you need a sort of a headset, and not a headset, but glasses and a visor, and you see a screen in front of you. Well, that's going to get more sophisticated as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit, it's a real Wild West and open frontier, and it's a bit of a I wouldn't say a land grab. In a way it is, but it's also just the land is still expanding and opening up. So, it's good to be in this space at this time. And it's, I think we're very grateful that we sort of managed to establish ourselves in the areas that we are, and with the substance we've got and the great relationships and contacts. But of course, I think from an investor's point of view, you want to see progress and movement, and it's frustrating when it can't happen like day to day. I mean, we are releasing far more news than probably most are, but it's still not sort of hitting the spot because everyone wants us to be at the end or coming to the end of the journey, and that still take a little while. It's really about sort of getting in early enough to actually sort of see where it's going. But anyway. But we're pretty confident, and we're very excited about the work we're doing. Just have to sort of keep it going.
Oh yeah, 100%. Mark, sorry, as usual, I'm talking. I'll let you come in because I know you're keen to talk about the space and the sector and what's happening with Ethereum and some of the altcoins, and as Malcolm says, it's a bit of a Wild West out there, and I'm maybe drinking in that saloon at the moment with some of my investments, but hey ho, you put your money on the table and you take your chance. So you do.
Yeah, no, you do. But it is a Wild West though, isn't it? And I mean, you look at some of these things and it's almost laughable.
There was one last week, $100 in, 24 hours later it was worth $250,000. It's just crazy. Yeah. How many millionaires were made overnight? I can't remember. It was one of the dog tokens. I can't remember the ticker for the life of me. No, I think it was Akita or
Shiba Inu.
I can't. Akita or hell knows.
One of those. The dog ones are trendy at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, you've not really. These aren't investments.
It's play money, is it?
Yeah. But what's happened with Doge is incredible. And it is, I mean, it was set up as a joke. There's no limit to the amount of Doge that can be minted. And it's weird, but nonetheless, because one of the wealthiest people in the world has got behind it, it's kind of created a sort of too big to fail environment where it's gone up astronomically, but there's absolutely no basis or substance to it at all. But you can't deny that that's where it is, and the speculative appeal is incredible. I mean, we just can't sort of go in that direction because for us, certainly as a company, we couldn't even think about it because we know better than just look at this. Someone's going to get hurt at some point, and we wouldn't even want to think about that as from a prudent level. There's also, as you say, there's lots of ideas, there's lots of new projects coming out, and there's lots of kind of solutions for issues that are sort of current, and maybe those solutions will only last about a few months or a year or so, because someone will come up with a better way of resolving it.
But do all the ones that come out then have some kind of solution behind it, or are some of them just literally created for the sake of it?
No, well, I mean, yes, a bit of both, really. Yeah. But the thing is that you've got to look at the team. The smart money will research it. I mean, there's a lot of young, new style VCs. I'm speaking to a few of them who contact us, and they want to pick our brains on sort of where we would invest and what we'd look at, and we sort of explain that our rationale is a little bit different to that. But these are funds that are have got, maybe a few million quid in them, and they're run by people probably under 25. And, you can't argue with that. They've built it up. Now, I don't, as I say, I'm not sure if that's got sustainability or longevity. My view on the way token sales work is, having lived through the big kind of ICO wave in 2017-18, it finished as soon as it started. I mean, it literally in end of 2017, it came off the boil, and then all these projects that have been set up started needing to sell their ether, and it crashed the price. So we're not going to sort of get drawn into that world certainly on the advisory side.
Yeah.
In the same way, it was great while it lasted. We sort of rolled with it, and as a company, in nominal terms did quite well. We had to wait quite a while for our tokens to recover, but we managed to get it into the proper crypto, and obviously we've done very well. But that's so be it. We've never bought any of these tokens. We've earned them, and we've got a few $1 million in crypto as testimony to that. But I think that when it comes down to it, I think there are certain protocols. There's Bitcoin particularly is probably the strongest asset on the planet, arguably with gold. Because it's just so quantifiable. And it's now seeing a bit of a exodus from the speculative money. The large, what we refer to as whales, are now shifting out of Bitcoin to a degree, but the corporates are picking up the baton. And that's where that money's going. I think they've done well to go from 0 to 60,000. It's not a bad return, and it's now moving on to institutional money because they recognise it for what it is. But the application protocols are really interesting, and that's sort of Polkadot, Ethereum particularly, because what's driving them is not it's not just speculative demand. In fact, that's probably the least of it. It's the use you need the ether to use the platform. So what you're seeing is a lot of interesting, innovative financial solutions built on Ethereum. Bond trading, lots of projects, and every time there's a new project that's built on Ethereum, there's more need for the token for gas. So it is a self-sustaining machine, and that's why the price is driving as hard as it is. The last time I checked, it was 4,300. It will have minor pullbacks.
Yeah.
But I don't see anything that is going to sort of stand in its way whilst it's things are going as they are. It's actually just pulled back a little bit. It's just down under 4,200, but it's still, I think you'll find it catches a bounce and goes back up again. So, whilst everyone's looking at sort of what's the next one I can get 20 bagger on, I'm quite happy sitting on Ether, which has grown 100% in the last month. That's not a bad return when you look at the risk factor involved in that as well. And of course, from Coinsilium's point of view, it's not bad because we've got a big chunk of Ether in our treasury.
From Coinsilium's point of view, you're not going to be getting involved in the speculative coins. You're fairly happy to keep what you deem as longer term safe ones,
investment grade.
Investment grade, and you're not so worried about the peaks and the downs.
Yeah, it's not necessarily longer term, Mark. It's liquid. We could sell it. We could sell tomorrow if we wanted to, or any minute of the day, 24/7. And it's more about the liquidity and the strength and the robustness of it. It's an application protocol, so it has got it's reliant on people using it. Whereas Bitcoin is purely apart from the transactional capabilities, it's a store of value. But and you don't get as much out of your Bitcoin at the moment. I think at one time there were 40 ETH to a Bitcoin, and now it's about 12. So, if you want to play that game and you ride between one and the other, then you could have done it even better. And to some degree, we've done a little bit of that arbitrage as well, but not necessarily in some of the more speculative projects, because those are companies, really. You've got a management team in a lot of the projects, and you've got execution risk, and you've got various other things going on as well.
What about Binance Coin? Was that was supposed to be one that's it's going to be
phenomenal. Phenomenal. I think it's great, but it is a project token. It's
okay.
It relies, it's sound fundamentals, because the value in the token is going to be determined by the usage of that token on Binance as a platform, and all the other tokens they bring out. Now, that Binance works because it's such a large player in the exchange space. So because they've got an audience there, it will work. I like it, but it's still not. I don't look at that as a kind of a decentralized protocol. It's kind of, it's still, if anything bad were to happen to Binance, then the token would suffer with it.
Yeah, exactly.
As a company, I don't think it will, but if it did, that would be where the risk was.
I see. So it's like, different. Yeah. So from your point of view then, or from Coinsilium's point of view, what are investment grade ones then?
Well, I think there's very few, but the less friction, the more volume, and the less sort of touch points in commercial touch points there are, the better. So Bitcoin, who's the CEO of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Well, there's no one there that's going to sort of make a poor decision and affect your investment, is there?
Yeah.
And likewise with Ethereum, there's less. There's still a team, but there's less going on, and it's more about that application protocol. So there's less to input it. But if you've got, it's more like investing in a company when you're going down to the project level.
Yeah, I see. You mentioned Polkadot as well. What's that? One about?
Polkadot is growing very, very fast. It's got a lot of leverage, and it's got, if it catches it, arguably some people will say it's better than Ethereum. I'm not smart enough to know the answer to that one, but I do listen to what the smart people say, and it has the same kind of attributes in terms of what it can be used for, but it's still a small, very small in comparison to it. And there's Cardano as well, which has got the same ambitions, I think, and again more early stage, but again serious guys running it. But the more you go down the table, the more you kind of get into the world where there's a company, there's a business, and there's a strategy, and there's the execution risk as well.
Yeah, it's almost akin to. I know you're not buying shares in the company, but whatever the company does will represent in the value of the token.
Well, it does impact it. Yes,
exactly.
It can impact it because that's the project, and the tokens really are rights to future usage.
In
the larger ones, they're rights to current usage. So it's like a debenture. It's your ticket to get on the platform. So
what I'm doing at the moment is I'm sort of dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and sort of some of the investment grade ones, as you say, because I'm not going to drop everything in Bitcoin and it then decides it's going to drop 50% the next day, which it could well do. But if you've got to scale into these things, you don't worry so much, do you, about the intraday swings? So it's a longer term thing.
No, it's all
And then on the side, I'm doing my fun, sort of like Kenny, my fun money, which is kind of a laugh more than anything. And if it does exceptionally well, then I'll be happy. But if it doesn't, then I'm not as worried.
Right.
But what about you personally? Are you doing any of the craziness, or are you?
No,
you're not personally. Okay.
No, it's not. I'm boring and I'm old.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, but 100% a month return, boring as it sounds, is good enough for me in Ethereum.
Okay, sure.
The thing that's frustrating about Ethereum just now is just the gas fees. It's just absolute.
Yeah, but that
crazy.
I know that's not the point, though, is it? Because if the gas fees were to impact on the price, then I wouldn't be buying it.
Mm.
But the gas fees are absolutely, through the roof because of the
usage. Yeah.
It's a victim of its own success.
The frustrating thing as well is I think I've had 2 failed transactions in the last week, and that's like $260 just gone, just like that.
Well, you just lose it.
Yeah, you just lose it. It's gone.
Why did your transactions fail?
No idea, Malcolm. I'm
not aware of that as a normal thing. I might be wrong.
There's lots of them, Malcolm. Yeah, I'm in a couple of Telegram groups with crypto groups, and there's a lot of failed transactions, and it's money gone. There's nothing you can do.
That's strange, because I had a couple of failed ones on one that's like an off the exchange. But what I did was I basically sort of cancelled it, if you like, and up the gas fee, and it went through in seconds.
That's what people do.
Yeah.
Physically, they can physically fail, and the transaction's just cancelled, and that's
so it's not even pending. It's just gone.
It's just gone. Yeah,
it tells you. I've not heard of that.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's at peak times in the network or whatever. But
I think if you cancel it and put another order in the higher fee, it should go through, and you don't pay the fee. But look, as I say, I don't do too much with on the transactional side myself.
Yeah.
Just sitting there holding it and looking to cash it in now and again. So it's a great great asset. I can see, in my personal opinion, not investment advice, but I see Ether going to 10,000 without too much of a struggle. It might pull back along the way.
But I'd agree. Where do you think we are now, though, Malcolm? Do you think we're at the kind of a little due a bit of a correction?
Well, in what?
In the crypto space in general. I mean, you've got Ether there at all-time highs. Bitcoin come back off the all-time high. A lot of them, like we mentioned earlier, Doge is gone insane. Do you think we're kind of due a bit of a correction? Albeit short-lived, maybe.
No, I don't see that as being. I think what you'd need to see that is kind of strength in the alternatives. So, what's the alternative to holding crypto? Cash.
Yeah, cash.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all current, currencies, the best would arguably be the dollar. It's the most sort of prized. Well, that's devaluing at about 1% a month.
Mm-hmm.
So, the pound is doing something similar to that, and then you move down the currency scales because everyone's printing money, and there's huge debt, and you are looking at an inflation of realistically 10 to 15% a year. So if you have something that is a deflationary asset and is a place to still put your money in, corrections tend to get bought because it's better than keeping your money in cash. So right now, the US is embarking on this huge stimulus, I think, construction and infrastructure spending. And, they need to print more money for doing that because they haven't got, they don't even take enough taxes to pay the cost of central government. Then they've got all their other extravagances to deal with. So, if you look at it that way, if you go to cash, then you sit in cash and you're losing 1% a month, or you find a safe haven asset. And at the moment, it's kind of arguably crypto is the most obvious because it's the most liquid. So I don't know why, what a correction would look like and for how long it would last. I think corrections we've seen have just been buying opportunities for the last, certainly for the last year and a half. But I think, so that said, sort of digressing a bit, I think gold is probably going to come back on the on people's radar, but it might be. It started to move up. It'll take a little bit longer because it's a much slower beast to stir.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in podcasts before, Matt. There's the gold to silver ratio, and as Malcolm sort of mentioned earlier on, there's almost like a Bitcoin to Ethereum ratio as well. And there's people playing that game. So it's interesting how you know, there's trends and charts from, you know, gold and silver that was back hundreds and probably some cases thousands of years, is now sort of finding its way into the crypto world, even though it's only 12 years old, Malcolm, 13 years old.
2008, end of 2008, I think the white paper came out.
Yep. So it's
yeah.
Yeah, no, I must admit, like I say, I'm drinking in the Wild West saloon, but I like a bit of bottom feeding, so I do it in name as well. I always like to take a bit of a risk, and if it pays off, it pays off. If it doesn't, I just move on, and I don't know. That's the way I've kind of lived my life. So,
do you think that a lot of the perhaps money that would have ordinarily gone into the stock market is staying out, and because a lot of young people are doing crypto instead? Do you think that's a factor?
Yes, but I think so. But I don't know if it's money that would have otherwise gone in the stock market, because a lot of the young people who are into crypto have never been involved in the stock market. Yeah. They came to it sort of native. I do know that a lot of traditional money that is in the stock market is looking for alternatives in this crypto space, because why wouldn't it? You've seen a few initial listings on Aquis that are sort of in this space as well. So, and there's a healthy appetite for that. So what, I think vehicles are needed, and you'll probably see more, but you still got to cater for that demand, and as I said, you need to spend a good 100 hours to understand the space, and if you can't do that and you just want to rely on a company to invest in as a proxy, then that's the armchair way of doing it, and that goes on, whatever sector you're in. That's always a solution. Might be for a fund manager who doesn't have the time to manage those projects, but make no mistake, the people who do invest in crypto have to know what they're doing, and in blockchain in general.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. Kenny, any final thoughts from you?
What about your NFTs?
Oh, the NFTs, yeah. So, well, that was the thing. So gas fees have kind of killed any OpenSea transaction at the moment. And obviously, I've been using the Nifty scanner that your partner in crime, Endorse, has created. And I kind of wish it was there maybe 2 months ago, and I might have been able to save myself $1,000 or something, because it's certainly an eye opener when you look at.
Well, it's still in testing mode. We're going to try. Well, the next iteration will be a little bit more sort of have a little bit more in it. I won't give away too much, but if any there's any downtime, if there's any issues, you really should sort of interact with them, because they're very keen to get this sort of up to a kind of a finished product where we can then sort of look at how it's going to be commercialized, because there's definitely an appetite for it, and everyone there's a new video tutorial on it, easy to use, and it's it gives a good understanding of it, and we want to make sure more people know about it, and that's part of our role as well. But it's a great little tool, and there'll be others that are similar. So we'll have other applications within it as well going forward.
Yeah, I did notice the other day that there was like a carbon footprint extension, or browser extension from Endorse as well.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about this is that their network and their developers are so kind of experimental. They'll work on stuff that we wouldn't even know about, and they'll come up with it, and they'll just play around with it before we even get a chance. So, well, hang on a minute, why didn't you tell us that, what you're doing? So, well, we didn't know ourselves. These guys were just playing around with them. So, I think that will throw off a lot of ancillary propositions. So it's all really, really interesting. They're great little initiatives, and of course, as you say, if you would have been able to look at the NFT before you bought it, but of course, people don't know what you wouldn't think about that, would you? You wouldn't think.
No, the scary thing was, I mean, that when that Nifty Scanner came out, I went and looked for one of the most expensive NFTs I could find in OpenSea, and it happened to be from a well, I think I mentioned in a previous podcast, from a well-known rock band, and it was their official outlet, and the guy had paid
$100,000.
It was $100,000, which is probably $200,000 now, and that scored 30%.
Yeah,
and if the owner of that, well, although he thinks he's the owner of that NFT, if the actual owner of the web space where the actual clip is stored decides not to pay their hosting fees for that particular month, then he owns pretty much nothing.
It's like buying a Rolls Royce, but it's always got to be kept in the showroom. You can only go and see it in the showroom, and then you find the showroom's been robbed or the showroom's locked. And you can't take it out and display it. You don't actually own anything to do with it. You just have bought the rights to that in some way, shape, or form. The rights perhaps are on the blockchain, but the data is stored on a website, on a hosting service somewhere. And as you say, if those fees have to be covered. So the model was launched, and it's been allowed to take off, but it's a flawed model. So that's really why we're so excited about the opportunity of doing it right, because you think about that and you say, well, we're going to make sure that it doesn't happen with anything that's on our marketplace. Yeah,
I mean, you're old enough to remember Malcolm, and I don't think Mark will be, but it's like the kite.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not that old. It's like the kite mark you used to get in a lot of British produce, and that's kind of what Endorse is doing. They're almost saying, this has got the seal of approval. It's went through this rigorous testing, or it conforms to X, Y, Z. So that's the way I look at it.
And I think eventually it should be a standard. There should be a solution that people kind of could take for granted.
Yeah.
And that's really, the key to it, that no one would think about trying to sell an NFT where the media is stored or the metadata is stored on a server. No one would think about that, because once people have got a bit of education, they'll realize that that's the first thing people will look at. But it's not the first thing you look at now, because you don't know where to start. You don't think, it's not the obvious at the moment. That's what's so good about Nifty Scanner. And likewise, think about the next iteration of that, where it's embedded in a marketplace, and the minute you go to load your NFT to sell, it will detect it. It will say, this is on a web service, a hosting service. Have you thought about putting this on a decentralized service? Because it will be flagged, likely as not in the future, as being something that purchasers should need to know about. So it's a part of an education thing as well.
Definitely. But all right, good stuff, Malcolm. Well, that's almost an hour we've been talking. Believe it or not,
there you go.
Time flies as always.
And you're in a hurry. You told me before.
Yeah, because I think there's some pizza arriving at some point. So I don't really know if the Twitter world or the social media wants to see me stuffing pizza in my mouth for the Bitcoin Pizza Day. But
there's just giving your listeners a heads up, there's a new song coming out on Bitcoin Pizza Day by a group called The Original Coin, which is also what we would like to think we are, a Coinsilium, but this is the name of the band. It's featuring Sean Smith, who he was him and his sister in a duo that won X Factor in 2010. They were called Same Difference, and we've kind of sort of helped them a little bit with the promotion of it. So it's coming out on the 22nd of May, and it's called Bitcoin Pizza Day. Get on board the blockchain. And it's a real sort of upbeat dance track. And there'll be a video accompanying it, which some of it was shot in Gibraltar. So that's out on the 22nd of May. And it should be interesting to see how it goes, because I think it's the first ever mainstream song that has been written about Bitcoin Pizza Day.
Okay. That's nice. That's good.
Interesting.
And that time's roughly when your crypto stamps go.
Well, they go out on the
Go out
17th,
on the
but this is
17th.
the 22nd of, a few days later.
Okay.
So I'll send you the link to the Spotify and Apple Music so people can listen to it. But it's a cool little song. I think it is anyway, but, what do I know?
Good. Well, thank you very much, Malcolm. And next time
Pleasure.
we're on, hopefully we can talk more about the NFTs and the Gibraltar stamp.
We'll
And
keep you updated on.
yeah, I'm
Mr. Labs.
sure me and Kenny will have managed to have bought our NFTs.
Or pre-ordered them anyway.
Oh, of course, yeah, I've pre-ordered them, from the stamp. And
they're going live on 19th of July, but the pre-ordering.
Oh, so we won't find out what we've got until the 19th of July.
I don't think you'll be able to open it till then. No.
Okay. All right. Oh well.
Yes, this is all part of the.
All part of the master plan.
Yes, or the suspense is building up. Okay.
Good. No, listen, Malcolm, thank you very much again for your time. And we won't leave it as long next time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, both of you. Good to chat.
Thank you.
And yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Ben and Russell. Tune in next time.